Good morning, guys. Tex Homer here, Paul Wadlington. We're both sick, so I'm sure we will be very high energy today with our best mental acuity. But we're going to get through it for this hour and chat, and hopefully we don't need any more medication in the middle of it. Paul, you ready to rock, man?
I'm ready to rock. Let's do it.
Good. All right, first things first, I wanted to talk Texas development and running by you because we had 14 guys that got invited to the combine. That's a record for us. And I think the only team that had more, the only team that did have more was Ohio State with 15. So, hey, man, far cry from no NFL draftees a couple of years ago, man. So I just want to let's go through these guys and kind of figure out where you think they would go. We don't need to do fits. This is not a mock draft, but just kind of talk, strengths, weaknesses, rough early round, mid tier, that kind of stuff. Down?
Sure.
All right. We'll go in the order of the list. Quinn Ewers.
Wow.
This is going to be a fun one to start off with. I'm sure there'll be no controversy here with the fans. Good morning, Roaster.
I'll adhere to my prediction that I made a while back that he's going to be fairly maligned, and then you'll see 48 to 72 hours before the draft, you'll see a resuscitation project or attempt. But yeah, I mean, I think we know what his strengths and weaknesses are. If you're an Inside Texas reader, I think we've been frank about those. He's going to be an interesting fit for someone. And yeah, I think it just depends where he goes. I think that'll dictate some of his success, as is the case with most quarterbacks. So
yeah. Rams are 49ers, so I think I agree. You want strong coaching, quarterback in front of you, very systematized. That would be a strong thing for Quinn. Let him sit for a little while. And what I also heard that was interesting from the draft guys, like kind of all around, there's only I think 15 true first round grades that are kind of consistent across mocks, meaning that bottom 10 or whatever is going to get interesting.
Is this considered a weak draft overall?
I don't know about overall, but I mean, in the first round, it's got to be, because like I said, only about half of the first round are like true first rounders. And then after that, it becomes kind of opinions and fits.
Okay.
So I thought that was interesting. So this is where, to me, Quinn is a second round, third round quarterback, but movement there can happen. Interestingly. So that'll be important for Quinn. He's going to interview well, of course, right? At pro day, he's going to drop some nice throws. That's going to get the scouts going. The issue is going to be when you turn on the tape and watch when pressure is involved. So going to be a strength. If you had to give a grade or a rough round on Quinn, what would you say right now?
Second, third.
Okay, fair enough.
I don't know.
Jaden Blue. So Jaden Blue, I thought went out too early. I thought he needed another year or maybe a transfer, however it would have gone. But I think he could have done another year in college. What do you think there?
Yeah, I think so as well. I think he just wants to get started. Very interesting case, because you got to wonder where he goes. Is his NFL contract going to be better than his NIL?
Right.
I mean, well, I guess the question is, the NFL contract will be better, but is it so much better versus another year to raise your stock?
And getting an NFL contract after that.
Right. The argument against that is you can get injured or your stock can decline.
Mm-hmm.
The other part of it is a lot of people, unless you're pegged as one of the elite running backs, you're just a commodity, and you might as well just get your career started and try to make a team and get to that second contract, right? So it's an interesting argument. To me, he seems like a fifth rounder or something. What do you think?
Say? So he has traits, right? Like the speed is there. That's going to be important when he tests. And his hands are there when he is fully engaged. So whenever, if he's having like an off game and not very super mentally strong, he drops balls. But as far as like being able to catch, he has great hands. He's had that since high school.
Yeah.
So he absolutely has interesting traits. Maybe some special teamsy stuff that he could do, maybe some type of like a kick return. And so I think that has value. I just think he's a year too early coming into there. So yeah, something like mid-late makes sense.
Yeah.
and this is without me even looking at mocks for like our guys. I'm just trying to tell you what I honestly think and not be influenced by it. All right. Isaiah Bond. So coming into the year, we know he had elite speed. That was kind of the point of start getting him. And then he was getting, first round mocks before the season started. But of course, we had a lot of injury. And then there was some issues with engagement, right? I guess you could say on the team. And so that's gonna knock him down because he really doesn't have tape. I mean, he had a couple things where he housed it, like this. Remember the counter spinner or whatever? He took that to the house. There's going to be good things on tape, but it wasn't the ideal season for him to get that first round grade. What do you think?
Yeah, I agree. I mean, look, as a Texas fan, I think it became apparent near the end of the year that his rehab was focused on the NFL rather than playing for Texas.
Yeah.
So it is what it is. Mercenary, that is part of this deal. To me, just off of pure traits, he'll probably still be a second rounder, right?
Yeah.
I mean, he's gonna run like what, a 4.3?
Yeah, he's super fast. I mean, he has the traits the NFL wants. He'll forever live in infamy in everyone's mind from the Alabama Auburn catch. So that kind of stuff matters too, right? They would have seen him 2 years ago do that. So he's been on the radar for a while. So yeah, I still think he's an early rounder. I just think he wasn't able to maximize him that first rounder that we were thinking he would this year. So second, third round, right? Wide receivers. Remember last year was a crazy wide receiver draft.
Yeah.
This year's not quite the same. So there's a chance you can go up early. All right. So speaking of quote unquote mercenaries that came in for 1 year, but this one was a little different, totally integrated and boosted his stock, man. Did it right. Big fan of Matthew Golden. And he's getting first round mocks consistently. So to me, man, a wide receiver. We talked about that. It's not just he has elite speed and he can burn you or something like that. It's that he's playing wide receiver. So his releases are awesome. He understands coverages. He knows how to set guys up. He knows how to beat zone. He knows how to beat man. And when it comes down to it and he is covered, he'll just climb the ladder and go get it. He's just playing wide receiver, man. And when you watch him when he doesn't have the ball, which is also equally important, he's doing all the right stuff to help his teammates get open. So Matthew Golden was able to get more of a run as the year went on because Bond went down. But I'm really excited to see what Golden does. I do think he's a first-round receiver, not just because he's a Longhorn. And, man, that was an excellent grab this year that I don't think anybody realized was going to be that important. What do you think, Paul?
Yeah, what an awesome test case back-to-back with A.D. Mitchell that you can show transfer receivers. Like, hey, this is a guy that was thought of a certain way. Then we got our hands on him for 1 year and made this guy millions of dollars. No exaggeration.
He's excellent for the recruiting pitch.
Yeah, and back to back with him and AD Mitchell. So that spring portal, we're going to be making that pitch to a lot of people and trying to secure another story like that. I love Golden. He was phenomenal for us down the stretch. Really strong hands, great ability, like just very focused. Like not a guy who has the my bad plays, the receivers that are always looking back at the quarterback. My bad. Yeah. I didn't run, like he doesn't do that. He's engaged. He's focused. He knows what's going on. And his physical attributes, people are underplaying him like, well, he's not a freak. It's like,
they're all freaks. Yeah.
They're all freaks and he's going to test just fine.
Yep.
So I think the issue people have with him is he's 6 feet, 195. So they're like, average size. It's like, well, for his size, he's really strong. I mean, he has a lot of play strength, not just his hands, but his body. When people
go up and get
him,
it,
he runs through them. And he's hard to get on the ground, actually, on the run. We didn't see that as much because we had to use him on more of a downfield usage. But, he's great on crossing routes, great on slants. So, yeah, I think he's going to be a late first rounder.
Yeah, that was.
Why are the names so faded on this? It's weird.
I don't know. This is their graphic. I mean, I did the background, but yeah, this is the trendy way to do it, man.
It's irritating.
Yeah, it is a little hard to see. Paul Homer, Matthew Golden versus A.D. Mitchell as prospects. Oof.
So A.D. Mitchell is more of a freak in terms of physical traits. I mean, height, weight, speed. A.D. Mitchell ran better than I thought he was going to run.
Than everyone thought he was going to run.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I don't think, we talk about the my bad to the quarterback. A.D. Mitchell was the king of my bad. I mean, he had an incompletion a game where he'd point back to Quinn and be like, oh, wrong route. Sorry, man. Or he, a couple times he didn't run the route. But I mean, A.D. Mitchell's longer. He's probably more of just a physical freak in terms of his specs. But they do share some similarities in their ability to win the ball. A.D. Mitchell did it with size and length. Matthew Golden did it with positioning, strength, and like really strong hands. Golden's got really strong hands. So different players. A.D. Mitchell is more your classic X out on the perimeter. Golden, I think you can play him in different places. I think one of the things that people will like about him is his versatility, that he can just line up and be a football player. And I think the NFL coaches will like that.
Yeah, and he can line up anywhere too because of his understanding. And so that's important too. He's a smart player, man.
Yep.
When you're paying millions of dollars, man, you want athletes, of course, but you want a smart player. Makuba and Golden made themselves so much money at Texas. Happy for all the guys. Yeah, we'll 100%. Talk about Makuba. That was a huge one too. One of my favorite players we've had. All right, man. Gunnar Helm, baby.
Talk about a guy who made himself some money off of development.
Absolutely, man.
Amazing. Set the single season tight end receiving record.
Which is a trip, yeah. And I remember when he was at Cherry Creek, I would argue that he was a downfield threat because I'd see him be a downfield threat. He was like catching fade balls, and we never used him for that. And it was frustrating to me the past couple of years. I mean, he had the one at Iowa State where they were able to dink it and he ran, but the fact that we weren't using him in the passing game in the past was bothering me. But this year we did it, and I thought he showed why he had that potential. So that was awesome. Where do you think he ends up, though?
4th rounder?
Okay. Because they have, I think in the first round right now, it's Penn State, Warren, and then Michigan's Loveland are like the top 2.
What about the guy from Bowling Green?
I don't know.
You know what I'm talking about?
No.
He set the NCAA record for tight ends.
I don't know where he mocks.
Okay.
Chat, let us know if he mocks.
Harold Fannin, I think is his name. They fed him in the bowl game to set the record. I think he had like 17 catches. So
is he like, how is he traits wise?
Just like an awesome receiver. He's not like a freak though.
Okay.
So I don't know. How does, I mean, that's how he ranks in the tight ends. What does that mean for the larger draft?
Yeah. I don't know.
I mean, Tyler Warren's a freak.
Dude, he's man, I didn't watch him carefully until the Penn State and the playoffs, and I was like, geez, man. I failed to see how Loveland is better than Helm. Could be my bias talking, though. Loveland's a better, like, route runner, that kind of stuff. Loveland's stronger at. And
is
then, he? Yeah. In my opinion, yeah.
Helm was a pretty good route runner.
He is, but Loveland's like a first-round route runner. Neither one's an elite blocker, so you're going for pure athleticism. I think Loveland has a little bit more body. I don't know about hands control, but body control too. Like Loveland to me is like kind of where you're getting into your big receiver category. Helm's like, to me, is like an actual tight end in build.
I don't know if I think Loveland may be bigger, actually. Are you saying they
No, I mean, he's just like, how Loveland moves is more like a wide receiver to me.
Oh, like Zach Ertz kind of guy.
Yeah. Like, and Helm is more just like he's good athlete, good hands. Like the stuff with Quinn where he would just drape it in, that matters. But it's like, as far as body control, Loveland to me just is a big receiver in how he moves.
I wonder how Helm's going to test.
I don't know.
I feel like he's a better feel like he moves better in pads than he probably will like in shorts.
Yeah.
Like he translates to football because Helm showed an element of like after the catch that was surprising.
Yeah, he had good yak and really strong hands. Like we said, when Quinn would like throw that stuff over the middle to hit it right there, that's important. But more bench reps, Helm or something.
Helm,
undoubtedly, it's got to be Helm. Yeah, that was disappointing with JT because it's like he didn't even try to work out for the combine. You know, it's like he just like tried to show up.
I think he might have had a shoulder issue.
Maybe hopefully. Maybe I have this image of him when he played us and fumbled. Yeah. Dude, it's crazy how many first-round talents Michigan has for their record. Like in the mocks, like they have the corner, they have Johnson, they have Graham, they have what's the other interior guy? It's Mason Graham, and then the little one that's like a bulldog that's like Byron Murphy.
Yeah.
Kenneth Grant and something like that. Grant. Yeah, there we go. And then they also have Loveland. So they have like potentially 4 first-rounders right now.
Yeah, I wrote something up on Inside Texas about if you look at FEI and advanced analytics, your floor is actually more provided by your offense than your defense now.
Yeah, I read that, and that was interesting.
And Michigan's a pretty good example. If you had their equivalent talent on offense, and then they had the sorry defense, they probably win. I'm pretty sure they win one more game. They might win 10.
Yeah.
Instead of going 8-5.
Yeah.
Just because of the nature of football now. And, because think about what the equivalent of that on offense would have looked like for them, right? But their offense was so bad that in some games, just it literally didn't matter how well their defense played. Also, that defensive talent was inconsistent for as good as, and it wasn't because of how they played. It was as good as their game plan was against Ohio State. It wasn't very good against us.
Yeah.
I mean, they didn't really understand what we were trying to do on offense, and they didn't prepare correctly. And I think their defensive coordinator, got a little too cute. Seeing Mason Graham drop back into zone coverage, I think you're kind of losing the plot, right?
Yeah. And that was all with Sark not even throwing to one side of the field because of their corner.
Yeah, no, I mean, but that's the way I would address a super elite corner like that.
Yeah.
I just be like, okay, you're great. One of our 5 receivers is now not part of our game plan. We'll throw to the other. Suddenly, Gunnar Helm, you're the hero, right?
Yeah. All right, guys, before we keep going, let's hear from Laura Baker.
Hi, I want to tell you about Laura Baker. If you're looking for a new home in the 512 or even at this point, let's face it, 737 area code, there's only one number to call. That's Laura Baker at 512-784-0505. As a member of the elite Andy Allen team with Keller Williams, Laura has helped Longhorns find the home of their dreams in Central Texas. Just ask our resident sex symbol, Ian Boyd, who moved all the way from Michigan to Texas with Laura's help. Laura can help you find what you're looking for in the 512, the 737, or even parts of the 254 and the 210. Just, give her a call at 512-784-0505. Her email is in the description as well as the rest of her contact details. She's a friend. Give her a call.
So it looks like they have just kind of like a composite of all the mocks. It looks like Warren's first, Colston Loveland is second, Elijah Arroyo, the Miami tight end, Mason Taylor at LSU, Harold Fannin from Bowling Green, and then Gunnar Helm. So it seems like kind of when you put them all together, Gunnar Helm's like the 6th tight end off the board.
Mason Taylor is really good. He's like 6'7" too, right? The LSU guy.
Mason Taylor is listed at 6'5", 255.
Yeah, he plays big.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's a good player. Yeah, there's some decent tight ends.
Yeah. Kelvin Banks Jr., man.
First rounder, baby.
Yeah. But now they're playing the guard games with him.
Oh, God, that's so stupid.
Yeah. It's like, guys, don't overthink this, man. He's been playing first-round edges since he was 18.
Well, if you think he's a guard, don't draft him in the first round.
Oh, exactly. And so but that's just the fun game of it.
NFL draft Twitter is really dumb, and they go basically off of platitudes. So the common thing in the NFL is, well, this guy's listed as a tackle, but early in his career, because he's not 6'7", we should play him at guard. But actually, what's funny is if you know anything about Calvin Banks and you've actually watched him, the thing he struggles with the most is displacing really big guys who are, 330, 6'2", with a good base. He crushes people in space. He destroys like linebackers. He's great on the pole. He's really good against bigger guys who are out trying to play the edge, who have a different responsibility than just charging upfield. That's where he thrives. And he's a great pass blocker. He has gone against multiple first-round NFL draft pick pass rushers over his career. Like
a ton of times. Like
double digits.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. It's
and
crazy.
his record in those fights is like 9-1.
Yeah.
Right?
It's basically just like Georgia. The only outlier. And that was everybody.
Yeah, and then honestly, I have my own opinions on that one too. But just people are looking at the specs and saying, well, he's 6'4", therefore he's not a tackle. And it's like, actually watch him play tackle, therefore he's a tackle. How about trying that?
Yeah. Yeah, it's silly. Shout out Kelvin Banks. Hayden Connor.
He's going to get drafted. I think he needs to go to a pass-heavy, zone-blocking team that throws the ball a lot, because he is a very good pass-blocking guard, and he can play center. So I think there's some flexibility there. Very good pass protector on the interior, which is valued in the NFL. He's a poor run blocker, and he struggles to displace people. He struggles to get push.
Which is weird for his size. But also, even if you watched him in high school, he had like tackle movement whenever he was like doing his pass blocking and stuff like that. So
yeah,
it makes sense. But we need to see someone that big. Also, if they wear a neck roll, you assume they can run block. But shout out Hayden Connor. I'm glad he was able to get an invite to the combine. Jake Majors, man. Feels like he's been with us forever, dude.
He has. Was he 60 starts or something at Texas?
Yeah, it's crazy. He broke the record, right?
Crazy.
So, Jake Majors, shout out. So sharp guy. I never felt like the offensive line was super confused with him later on, I guess. There's some limitations to the size, right? But as far as he's going to come in and know your system and be reliable, which is like trait number one with the center, I feel good about that.
Agile. He's a pretty good mover. He can pull.
Yeah.
He got stronger as he stuck around at Texas. If you remember early in his career, he was always had some sort of injury, and it would screw up his off seasons, so he couldn't get stronger. He got stronger his last 2 years. And I thought he really broke out his last couple of years. I thought he was an average center his first couple. And then I thought 2023 he played well. And then 2024, he had a really good year. 2023, man, we really saw how much we missed him in that OU game.
Sheesh. That was true. Yeah. And that's what I'm saying. I felt really safe when he was in. Like the offensive line, we're going to know their assignments. He's a great leader in the room. And then you'll just like him as a fan because he's played so many games, like a real Texas Longhorn, not to be corny, but like you have a few of those rare players where you're just like, they kind of epitomized it. So shout out Jake. As far as his rounds, man, my NFL grading on centers is abysmal. You could tell me any round and I'd be like, okay, what do you think, Paul?
Late round, yeah.
Yeah, I would say me, I feel like 6th or 7th, right? Or do you think he'd go to 5th? I have no idea. Iron Longhorn, Jake Majors. Yeah, shout out Jake. Cam Williams. Traits, baby. Traits.
Yeah, that's the appeal.
He should have came back one more year, selfishly for us, but I also think selfishly for him.
Yeah, I think he could have been a high first rounder if he really blossomed in the offseason.
Yeah. Felt to me like he was trying to like keep pace with Kelvin Banks there. It's like we came in at the same class for both tackles. Like, don't worry about keeping pace with Kelvin. You don't have to be 3 and out, man. He has incredible traits even back in high school, man. What was always funny about Cam is how big he was and he slimmed down a lot. But like, remember how big he was originally? And then in high school, but he was always a better pass blocker. It was so strange watching his huddle. He's always been able to move. It's impressive. Like we said, he slimmed down, so he showed a focus there. I know he was frustrated with waiting, but I thought it was good. Now, he still makes some kind of classic errors, right? We saw that a few times. He did in Ohio State, but also Cam was injured and came back to like try to make it happen too. So there's some heart there that I think was a good plus. He makes mistakes sometimes, clearly, but man, the traits are there. The NFL is going to love that combination of size and pass blocking. So I hope the best for Cam, even though I think one more year would have probably shirted up more.
Yeah, he's mean too.
He is mean,
which really helps. That's good.
Yeah.
And sad, our last memory of him, is that Ohio State snap. But that's a game where he played injured and clearly got more injured as the game went on. Just one of those things.
Yeah.
Sucked.
Vernon Broughton, Paul, what do you think?
Man, that guy, he's the Gunnar Helm of the defense, right? Like, just raised his stock every year. And really was a guy that I didn't like watching very much early in his career.
Yeah.
Because he didn't have a lot of strength. He had really bad pad level. He would fire out really fast. He'd make first contact and then just lose when it became a strength game, when the grind started. And he's a guy, when he got double teamed, he could get just blown off the screen. That all changed. He got stronger. He started to learn to play with a better pad level. And he really developed as a pass rusher and a disruptor inside. So the NFL is going to love him because, the big thing in the NFL now is versatility. It used to be, hey, we're a 3-4 team. We got 3 down linemen. They line up in the same spot every time. We've got our 2 outside backers, or we're a 4-3 team. This is how we line up. NFL is just multiple now. And so they want to know, can your big guys in particular play outside in certain situations? Or can some of your elite edge pass rushers who have some size, can they play inside in certain situations? And everyone's looking for Chris Jones, right, for the Chiefs. And Vernon Broughton's a guy that could credibly play in different spots. And I think they're going to like that versatility. And, I expect him to have a nice NFL career.
So do I. Yeah, he went from a basketball player to a football player.
Yeah.
And then that development matters because he always had nice feet from that basketball background. Then he just outgrew it and had to play football. But he was fun to watch too. Another example of us like having anxiety with our defensive tackles, but by year 4 or year 5 or whatever, you're like real good. Hopefully that continues. Here's a great one. Baron Sorrell, man. Shout out Baron Sorrell. Did it perfectly. Everything you asked for. All the cliches, right? The keep your head down guy, the work hard guy, the just get better. I mean, he was just the model of stability, right? Just every year improved. And we think of him too as like this like run stopper. The dude can pass rush too. He was getting to the quarterback. So he was able to do everything for us. Was a solid guy in the locker room, was a solid example, 3-star out of Louisiana. So had to earn it too. So shout out Baron Sorrell. I think we're definitely going to miss him.
Got better every year. Very physical, very strong, great like edge to how he plays. I think the big mental eval NFL draft teams are going to love Baron Sorrell. The Ravens, the Steelers, those kind of guys. And he's a guy who could do dirty work. But yeah, he's a better pass rusher than people perceive. One thing about our edge guys at Texas is PK makes them play correctly. Like, honestly, they're not allowed to just sprint up the field on a second down, hoping it's a pass and they stumble into a sack, right?
Yeah.
You have to play everything correctly. You're going to secure your gap and then you're going to pass rush. You're not just going to play in cheat mode all the time. And so even with that, Sorrell was the guy with the most pressures on our football team. People think it's Colin Simmons or Vernon Broughton. No, it's Sorrell. And he didn't always finish the play, but if you go watch that Arizona State game, he's the guy that's flushing Sam
into
Levitt.
The arm. Exactly.
Like every other play, he's just crushing the Arizona State tackle. And then Sam Levitt is doing Houdini acts all over the field for like 9 seconds before he throws a 6-yard throw. So, yeah, I mean, we're going to miss Sorrell. I think another thing about him is multiplicity. He could play 4-3 defensive end. I think he could play outside linebacker in a 3-4.
Yeah,
I really do. So that'll be interesting. I think NFL teams are going to evaluate that in the combine. They want to see how he moves. They want to see, like, can this guy credibly drop back into zone if he has to, stuff like that. So I don't know how the draftniks view him because he's really well-rounded, but he doesn't have any one particular trait that's exceptional.
Yeah, you got to just go with the football player eval, the cliche there.
Yeah. Was he like a 3rd rounder? 4th rounder?
I don't know what. I didn't look at any of these mocks because
Neither did I. I'm saying it off the top of my head.
Yeah, that's what I would put him as too. Alfred Collins, man. So Alfred Collins to me, man, remember his Colorado interception?
Yeah.
He just, like, leaped back. Alfred always had the ability he had first round tangibles. He didn't quite get there, but he always had the first round ability to me. Now I think he's going to end up, I don't know where he's at. He's probably he's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. He's the 7th tackle on the board right now, putting him roughly around the 55th pick.
You know what? I'll say this. If there's a guy that's going to surprise us in the late first round, could be Alfred.
He's going to test crazy.
I think he'll test okay. I think also people are going to like his film. I mean, he didn't have quite as many flash plays, but he played just as well as Byron Murphy and Tavondre Sweat.
Mm-hmm. And
really
the year
did.
before, he was the best pass rusher on the team, grade-wise, from PFF.
Yeah.
So it was 2 years of proving his ability. But you said, too, I think, when we talked earlier, that he did a lot better in the run.
Yeah, he was exceptional. I mean, how many times did people run at him in 3rd and 2, 4th and 1, and he stuffs the guy in a double team? I mean, he did that over and over. He was really disruptive. So as a pass rusher, didn't get sacks, like didn't get guys on the ground, but very disruptive with like an initial pocket collapse, getting his hands up single-handedly. I can think of 2 different times he created interceptions off of tip balls. I mean, that stuff matters, like disruptive sort of value-add plays. So that length is big. Early in his career, he didn't know how to use that. He also wasn't strong. You know, people always underestimate just the value of getting older and stronger in football. And that's what he did. You know, he really became a guy who could anchor, but he's got that value out of athleticism. Remember the OU game? He's not on the play side of a run. He runs down the OU running back and knocks the ball out. And it wasn't like flailing, tackling the guy, and his hands happened to encounter the ball. Right. He was like, I'm going to strip that guy from behind. And he stuck his hand in there. And I mean, that's a value add that NFL GMs and scouts are going to watch and be like, hey, we don't have a guy on our team who can do that right now. And that stuff adds up over the course of a game. So I think he's a 2nd rounder, but I could see someone falling in love with him and, you know, taking him early 2nd, even in the end of the 1st. You know, we'll see.
The only one that's bigger than him is Deion Walker out of Kentucky, but at 6'5", 320, if that's Alfred's true listing, I mean, he's the biggest for that athleticism too. Like, I wouldn't fire you if you snuck up and tried to take Collins because I think he has a good future there. Hey, man, another one that you're not going to miss on mental eval, on top of course, being a Thorpe winner athletically, Jahdae Barron, man, another 1st-round mock for us. Dude, another probably going to go down as like a top 5 Longhorn to me. I just thought he did everything correctly. I like anybody that plays nickel and then moves to corner. And like I said, whenever he said he was going to win the Thorpe, I thought he was delusional. You know, like defensive backs, you know, wide receivers and defensive backs are always delusional. And he's like, I'm going to come back and win the Thorpe. I was like, all right, you know, you're going to be a good corner. And he came back and won the Thorpe, man.
Yeah.
He was dominant, man. And on top of that, man, him on the mic, we're going to miss him at press conferences because he'll give you a real interview. And then he'll also he'll interview you back, man. He can control the room. The kid is just smart as hell on top of being an NFL high-level athlete. So shout out Jahdae, 1st rounder. And then I think he's going to have a long career in the NFL.
Agreed. Yeah, the very impressive guy on and off the field. Very competitive. Big hitter. Good tackler, which is not always the same thing, right?
Yeah.
Very good in coverage. Studious. Like he understands what's happening, how they're trying to attack him. He understands his role in the larger defense. Like he gets it, not just at the who's my guy level. He's got it at like the first principles level of, hey, why are we in this defense? What are we trying to do? And he can freelance and freestyle off of that, right?
And he knows your job and your job and your job. Also, big quarterbacks where he's like, go ahead and throw to this guy. I'm not, and then he'll run back. His understanding was really remarkable.
Here's the downside if we're trying to just figure out a downside for a guy that we love.
He's a guard. he's probably an offensive guard, dude. I'd have to move him there, like Kelvin Banks.
Yeah, exactly. Maybe the Matthew Golden of the secondary. He's not a freak.
No, he's not.
Right? He's a very good athlete, but he's not a freak. And he's a little bit older. So in the NFL, you're not evaluated the same as when you're 20 coming into the NFL draft as when you're 23, right? So the thought is he's more complete as a player, but he should be because he's older.
Yeah.
But to me, he's just a guy you draft and he plays for you for 10 years. Like,
exactly. Dude, if you're older, but you're winning because you're smart, I'm good with that. If it took you 5 years to get athletic, then I have a question there because that athleticism is going to fade 2 years earlier than the 20-year-old you draft. But you're not just drafting athleticism with Jahdae Barron. You're drafting a future leader of your honestly, a future leader of your team.
Yeah.
Who's going to be able to command your defense, who's going to give you positional versatility. Dude, he can play like a dime safety. He can play nickel. He can do all of that. Like you're drafting a core piece of your defense, like you said, for the next 10 years when you get Barron.
Yeah, it's always interesting to watch the post-game press conferences where they have the players interviewed. And Texas has like Taff, Jahdae Barron, Sorrell, whoever, and Jake Majors. And they're just answering at a level of intelligence and maturity. And then you watch Mississippi State's post game, and you're like, okay.
Yeah.
How did this guy get his helmet on?
Yeah.
Without help.
Dude, it's brutal. Some of those interviews you get with it, it's just like, man, this is the best y'all had to put out.
You're like, this guy ain't here to play school. That's for sure.
My favorite one is when like a journalist tries to craft like a really eloquent question, and then the player's just like, yeah, it was pretty good. And it's just so brutal for the journalist. Yeah. All right, finally, another one of my favorites, man. I just really like this team this year, to be honest with you. Like beyond doing well, I just liked the players. Andrew Makuba, man, huge grab from Clemson. Another one that I didn't realize the scope of that. I was like, this is going to be great. We're going to have a starter caliber guy. But, man, he was all over the place. Talk about someone also with understanding of the scheme. He was awesome, dude. And so he was able to get interceptions. He knew where quarterbacks were looking. He would give them the space to throw it so he could then close on it. And then on top of that, man, he had several hits that were so jarring. Your automatic instinct with how football is now is that it was targeting, even when it wasn't. Just anytime you see a collision that big now, you assume it's targeting. He did that a couple of times. So that's a player that can hit. I've also had positional versatility as a nickel in Clemson, but I think putting him at safety finally was a way better decision, clearly. So I think you're going to be happy with what you get in Makuba as well if you draft him.
Well, so a couple things are really fortuitous for Makuba. One, he understood I will not getting developed at Clemson and I'm not being utilized correctly.
Yep.
And that was his feeling, and that was substantiated when I watched Clemson play defense. I don't know if you remember my preview. I was like, they're more talented than they play. I was like, something's not adding up. These guys are below their level of talent and how they actually play. Yep. We played them, and that was the case. And then they fired their DC right after the season. So that all bore out. Makuba's instincts of like, I'm not being developed and used correctly was right. Comes to Texas, and he is put in a position where we didn't actually know he could do this stuff because the book on Makuba was experienced guy, played a lot, doesn't really make plays on the ball. He had one interception his whole career at Clemson.
Yeah,
starting 3 years. And then not soft, but not super physical. That was
just crazy if you would have watched this year.
Right.
Yeah.
And so he comes to Texas. We play him at deep safety, and he just roams around like a predator, making plays on the ball and knocking people out.
Yeah.
So I think that was huge for him. That really raised his draft stock. And then there's a great thing that's happened in the NFL that's really going to play in his favor, Connor. Everyone in the NFL is like, all right, too deep. You're not beating us over the top. You can dink and dunk.
Yeah.
And you can run the ball a little. But we're not getting out of too deep, and we're not giving you plays over the top. And we're going to ask our guys from too deep to then come up and support the run. So I think that's really helpful for him and his projection, because he showed at Texas, like, I'm that guy. You can play me deep. I'm going to make plays on the ball, but I can still come up like a maniac and run support. The knock against him is going to be size.
Correct. Yeah. So I was going to say, I'm looking at the other safeties. He's going to be the 5th off the board roughly. The smallest safety is 206 pounds ahead of him, and some of them are 220, and he's like 185.
Yeah.
So it's like, that's the difference there, because it's not production and intelligence and all that. I think it's just weight.
So you know how like UFC fighters or wrestlers or boxers cut weight?
Yeah.
Makuba is eating pizzas right before he gets, like, the night before he gets on the NFL combine scales. He's going to be just guzzling water and eating carbs so he retains
body by Taco Bell, dude.
Yeah, he wants to go weigh in at like 197 or something.
Yeah.
He's going to look like a little puffy.
Yeah.
But yeah, his true play weight, I don't care what he's listed at. He probably weighs 185, like you said. So
yeah, it's but man, 14 guys, dude, it's impressive, man. Shout out Sark, what they've been able to do. We've also seen the difference, right? Having pros on your team absolutely matters, and it makes quite a difference. But a lot of these guys too, man, like this isn't just a list of 5 stars.
These are transfers that maximize, guys who had longer term development curves that maximize, like Gunnar Helm. I mean, we checked every box. I mean, this is a good developmental staff. I mean, it's just a fact. So that's exciting. If you take this, so maybe we overthink football, but if you're decently coached, and Ohio State had the most guys invited and we had the second most, and we basically played for the national championship against them in the semifinal, maybe that tells you something, right?
Yeah.
This class, on the heels of the last year's class, does suggest that we're going to have a little bit of a reload, but rebuild also maybe this year, right?
That was a very nice way of putting it. Yeah, dude, if you get rid of what did we get rid of? 24, 26 NFL players in the past 2 years?
Yeah, I wonder what's this list going to be in 2020, at the end of 2025, right?
Yeah.
Is it going to be?
Yeah, it seems like this year we're going to have to take a step back, NFL talent-wise, and then rebuild again to the following draft.
Well, it all hinges on the spring, on that portal class. We'll see. Yeah. We will see, because tell you what, teams did a pretty good job defending the portal in the fall.
They did. That was kind of frustrating.
Yeah. So, and the spring portal is only open 10 days. So it's going to be crazy.
Yeah.
It's going to be wild. And Texas better be loaded for bear. It'd be interesting.
Absolutely. Paul, let the people know about old Gabe.
I'm going to let you know about old Gabe. This is a portal transfer that you want. 5-star. Call Gabe. You can reach him at 832-557-1095. He is a great mortgage guy. If you don't believe me, go read the testimonies that we see on YouTube or Inside Texas, but also just go to his Google reviews. And these are the Google reviews that are 3 paragraphs long, written by actual people, not the Google reviews that say great, misspelled, GRATE, all lowercase, and it's like from Bangalore, India. Mm-hmm. That may not be a legitimate review. Just throwing that out there, folks. Anyway, hey, Gabe's really sharp. Over 20 years in the industry. He's owned his own title company. He knows every phase, every part of this. He's not just your mortgage guy. He's your partner. and the guy that you want on your side in the most important financial decision that all of us will ever make, buying a house. This is the guy you need to call. Even if you're not in Texas, give him a call. He can still help you out. He can either do the loan because he's licensed in other states, or he'll get you to someone that he knows that can help and he knows is high quality, or he'll just coach you through the process and help you understand how to negotiate against other mortgage guys. And he'll do it just for the fun because you're a Longhorn fan and you're a supporter of the show.
Thank you, Gabe. All right. College football is changing. The evil SEC and Big 10 have colluded
That's right.
to run the sport. If you hear Big 12 fans talking. What's also funny is I've heard a lot of like, here comes the SEC running the sport. It's like, guys, give Big 10 their credit too. They're also involved in this. It's just, but SEC's, it's like when Texas and OU moved conferences, and everybody's like, there's Texas running the sport. It's like,
Yeah.
OU was also a part of this. But the goal is in 2026, it looks like we're going to move to a 14 or a 16 team playoff. And in that model, the SEC will get 4 teams. The Big 10 will get 4 teams. Big 12, 2. ACC, 2. G5, 1. Notre Dame, 1 if they make that top 14 or 16. Paul, how you feeling about it?
All right. So I don't want to hear a word from the Big 12 because the potential for 2 guaranteed spots
is better than they would normally do.
Is 2 more spots than they deserve in many years. Arizona State was a fun addition to the playoff. I have no problem with that.
Yeah.
But the Big 12, so just very simple, Connor, chat, does the Big 12 have a top 20 program?
No.
Program.
Yeah. No.
Okay. And they're going to get 2 guaranteed spots in the college football playoff in a field of 14.
Yeah.
Shut up. Like, I don't want to hear a word from you. Be quiet.
Yeah.
I don't want to hear anything but gratitude.
And then when Sanders leaves, their only viewership is going to go off a cliff too in Colorado. That's the only thing keeping them alive with eyes. And that's not a sustainable thing too. And they don't have like a killer recruiting team either. So it's like none of the traditional stuff that gets you there. The Big 12 doesn't have it right now.
Yeah. I mean, they don't have a top 20 program. So people will be like, well, someone's, blank finished 19th. No. Program. Like, I don't mean can a Big 12 team in any given year rank in the top 20? Sure, of course. You have to make a top 20, you have to rank 20 teams. You're gonna end up putting some people in there, right? But they don't have a top 20 program. I mean, at least the ACC, who, by the way, I think should also be grateful to get there too. They've only got 3 programs, really. And one of them is a chronic underachiever. And then Florida State just went 2-10.
Yeah.
So Clemson, I think, has the potential to be good this year. But
so do I. Unfortunately.
The other part, so the G5 still gets their auto bid. I think that's necessary just for like throwing college football a bone if we're going to have a larger involvement engagement. But I think we know in most years that G5 team will look out of place, right?
Yeah.
I think the auto 4 to the Big 10 is actually kind of generous because
I think
really
the Big 10
class that the SEC does.
Well, the Big 10 kind of cashed out on 1 year of looking good. So like the Big 10 was like, hey, we're equal now. But like we said, with the depth and the recruiting, like the SEC is like 7 of the top 10 recruiting teams are SEC teams. So yeah, I think the Big 10 kind of cashed out on like one really big year. But like the bottom of the SEC versus the bottom of the Big 10, it's not comparable.
Agreed. And the point of a playoff is to pick out the top, right? So that's fair. I think it's going to be the same 4 teams in the Big 10 over and over, more or less.
Yeah.
Whereas I think the SEC, you're going to see a lot of turbulence. You'll see different teams year to year. There's going to be a year where it's Auburn and South Carolina, right? I don't think there's going to be many years where it's, Purdue and Michigan State as part of those 4. So
how do you feel about so say it is the top 4 of the Big 10, right? Oregon, Ohio State, Michigan when they're back, that kind of stuff. But so say they are playing the bottom of a league that's nowhere close. So they're getting easier ways to be a top 4 Big 10 team. You know what I'm saying? So it's
sure.
it's like that, but also that'll get bared out in the playoffs, right? Like if you're a fraud, you'll get beat. So I think
qualitatively though, you can watch Penn State, you can watch Oregon, you can watch Ohio State, and you know that these are good teams.
Right. We just know by the level of talent. It's not is Ohio State a fraud? It's like, no, we can tell.
So people do this I think people struggle to see the traits irrespective of competition. So remember Bijan Robinson?
Yeah.
When the thing was, we plays Arizona football. And you're like, yeah, and Adrian Peterson played 3A. He's
also going for like 30 touchdowns a game.
Like he could run around against air. Can you not see the traits? Like, what do you?
The funniest part is the NFL Combine is that.
Yes.
Like you're moving against air.
Yes.
So it's like, yeah, you literally have to pay attention to the.
So when I watch Ohio State play, I'm like, I don't care that it's Purdue lined up across from them.
Yeah.
They got a bunch of good guys. It's pretty obvious, right? So.
Well, and to me, isn't this charity by definition? Because basically what the Big 10 and SEC are saying is like, look, we'll leave and go do our own thing, or we'll give you guys 2 spots. To me, it's like this is actually it's all kind of brutal, but it's like they're like the SEC and the Big 10 are so mean. It's like they could take their ball and go home, period. So like even inviting the other teams into the structure to me is at least some level of an olive branch. What do you think?
Yeah. Hey, the big winner of this, besides the Big 12, Notre Dame.
Guaranteed a spot as long as they're in the top
14.
Literally making a structure that accounts for one team is crazy.
I mean, that's amazing. I mean,
that's how much
they can lose 3 games and be in the top 14 in most years.
Mm-hmm.
And their schedule, if you noticed, is going to be heavily slanted towards ACC teams, right, in the future.
Yeah.
Which, unless that's the right ACC teams, that's just an auto win.
I know. Well, like we've totally incentivized Notre Dame to just play ham sandwiches. Now, they're not going to do that because Notre Dame's a huge brand and they're about getting their money. So they're going to have their big matchups because it's Notre Dame. But we have incentivized them to just maybe play one big game a year and then just chill. Because if you have a structure that includes you specifically, it's pretty remarkable.
2 more things. SEC more likely to go to a 9-game conference schedule now.
Yep.
That is going to be tough for some of the lower tier or mid-tier teams of the SEC because their model is built out on, can we go 4-4 in league play? Can we go 3-5 in league play? And then we schedule 4 scrubs.
Yeah.
So we go to a bowl. Everyone feels like we had a winning season. You can make the PR press releases from your sports information director of Mark Stoops has taken Kentucky to a bowl in 9 of 11, whatever, right?
Yeah.
All that bullshit.
Yep.
And for some of those, because fans may claim they want to play good teams. If they have the choice between going 4-8 with a really rigorous schedule and going 7-5 and blowing out, Wofford, they'll pick 7-5.
Yeah, what teams want is to play good games when they're really good. Like that's the ideal part. But you're right.
And win them.
Exactly. That's what I'm saying. People want to play great games. Yeah, people want to play great games as long as they're the winner of the great games.
That's right. So there's that. And then also in this new format, if it goes to 14, I hope it's 14 and not 16. I'd prefer if it's 8, to be honest. But if it goes to 14 and not 16, I think the conferences are going to pick their participants.
Yeah.
I don't think it's going to be a committee.
Yeah, so that is part of it too. So, yeah, there's a hugely diminished – they use all this fun language, like diminished roles for the committee, the committee is for the G5, Notre Dame, and then maybe one at-large. Yeah, and they're talking about, too, that like potentially in the Big 10 and SEC, they would create their own like mini playoff to get into the playoffs, which is even weirder. So it's like they would do a top 6 or whatever, and the first would play the 6th, and the second would play the 5th, and the third would play the 4th to get a playoffs into the playoffs. Isn't that weird? Because the problem is we've killed the point of conference championships. So they're like trying to create like something there. But to me, the whole point, if you're playing a 9-game schedule, not everyone plays everybody. But by definition, conference schedule is a tournament. It's just not round robin. So it's like there's a tournament within a tournament to get into a tournament, which is kind of interesting.
Yeah, they can't do away with conference championships though.
But that's what they're saying. It's like they're going to be hugely diminished.
They're too lucrative, and I don't think they're going to do the play-in. They might do for like the next, like the 5th place team. Like
yeah, so like here
with the 5th place SEC team might play the 5th place Big 10 team for the at-large.
So with multiple automatic qualifiers per conference, championship games become less important. So there's possible playing games instead. Example, SEC's 3rd best team plays 6th best for a playoff spot. And this could generate millions in extra TV revenue.
Okay, yeah. Well, I mean,
they're going to have to make more money. They're going to go to 9 games, which are already going to generate more money. Then they're talking about a play-in within the league, which is going to generate more money. And what's also interesting with these automatic qualifiers, 4 and 4, the preseason doesn't determine anything. Your overall record doesn't matter anymore. It's just your conference record.
Yep.
And now they're going to start doing like they do in basketball. They're going to have the SEC versus Big 10 matchup. And so Texas versus Ohio State, that kind of example is going to happen in the preseason now. And then that's also going to be sold as a separate TV package. So now they're going to get 3 different ways. They're going to be, and they're going to get, and they're going to get 30% of CFP. So now they have 4 different ways to monetize one season. Isn't that crazy? You're going to monetize for the SEC, monetize for a play-in in the SEC, monetize for the college football playoff, and monetize for your preseason where you match up against the Big 10.
This is all just driven by money. It's getting stupid.
Well, clearly, if you're able to monetize the same season in 4 different ways.
I just think that they're making the season drag too long.
It did feel long this year.
I mean, people have a sense of relief at the end of the year, even when you lose. Like, that's not the feeling you should have for your fans.
It felt like it this year, man. Like, it was like, man, this is taking forever.
You definitely felt that way.
Yeah, but it's just like, because I thought it was just a slow death.
That was like the happiest I've seen you in a post game.
Yeah. To me, it's just like I knew we were gonna blow it eventually, so it's just like it is what it is. But even like it feels like in the interim where you're taking those 2 weeks off or those 3 weeks, it's just like we don't need all of this time in between. And also too, it's damaged the wider thing, right? Like we're not getting a spring game, and like are most likely not getting a spring game. So it's like it's affected everything now, and they're having to kind of build around it, which is kind of frustrating.
We're going to have to move the college football season up in August further.
I agree.
But it's going to be brutal. Can you imagine an August 15th game?
Yeah, you're going to be passing out, dude.
Dude, that's brutal. Yeah. So in the South, that's just going to be.
Well, I was going to say we need to like get rid of one round of this. Well, it doesn't seem like that's going to happen. And so it's just, I don't know what you do. Or, man, maybe like one less game. Like, maybe one less preseason game. So if you have a 9-game schedule, you would have 3 preseason, right? And then you have 3 preseason if you play a 9-game, right? 12 games in the regular season. And then so you would play your Big 10 game, that package. You have 2. Maybe you don't play 3 preseason games. Maybe you just play 2 preseason games. You play a tomato can, and then you play your Big 10 matchup. In week 1, everyone plays somebody that they can clearly kill. And then week 2, you have your money game, and then you go into season.
Yeah, so I think most SEC teams will just play 3 scrubs.
Yeah.
Texas will play 2 scrubs and then 1.
Well, they'll at least have to play someone comparable whenever we do the Big 10 SEC crossover. That'll be like mandated contractually.
Well, why not make that the preseason, like the non-con games?
They are.
Like I thought you were talking about the context of the playoffs, a playoff play-in.
No. I'm talking about in the preseason. You're gonna so you're not. It's not a play-in SEC versus Big 10.
Okay, so this is just the NFL.
It's right, correct.
I mean, this is just the NFL. You have your division games,
Yeah.
and then you have to play comparable teams from other conferences, and your division games matter more. And then you have a beauty pageant with some conference standings at the end. Because in a 9-game round robin with asymmetrical scheduling in the SEC, you're going to have multiple 7-2 and 6-3 teams, like 7 of them, right? And you're going to have the one team that's lost 1 game and one other team that lost 1 game, and they're going to have 5 other teams that are 7-2 or 6-3. And then you get to pick the 2 that are just, the conference just picks them.
Yeah. And that's the problem.
Like South Carolina and Alabama.
Yeah. And what if there's going to need to be some coherent, like basketball. There's going to need to be quadrant. There's got to be something that you can point to give quality of win. Because that's it's going to continue to be a problem, especially when you have people piling up at the 4th and 5th spots too.
Well, and the college football playoff committee is determined to be unsophisticated.
Right.
They don't look at any real stats. They don't look at advanced metrics.
Yeah.
And the average fan, like, remember before the season, before the playoff, you might even bled into our chat a little bit of people saying, but SMU's deserving because they don't have many losses.
Right.
And you're like,
that can't be the metric.
You're like, you can't think of football that way. Who you play matters.
Yeah.
Well, not losing matters. If South Carolina wanted to go to the playoff, they shouldn't have lost to Ole Miss. And it's like, okay.
Yeah, we've got to get rid of the lost column bias. We've just got to get rid of it. We got to go from the boxing mindset to the MMA mindset.
Yeah.
That's important as we go forward. We wouldn't have called it too long if we had won the title. Yeah, I'm sure.
True.
Yeah. One more week. But yeah, it just felt like there's a lot of off time there that I don't think we need, that I think is a relic of the bowl system. All right. Paul, I'll give you an option. I know which one you're going to pick. Would you like to talk about revenue sharing, or would you like to talk about the final 4 SEC quarterbacks?
Revenue sharing?
Yeah, the Joe C thing.
Oh, yeah, we could do that real quick. We could knock out the quarterbacks real fast as well.
Okay. All right, let's do the quarterbacks real quick, and then we'll just talk about Joe C. Let me share the screen.
To clarify, he means Joe Castiglione, not Joe Cook.
Yeah.
Although we like to know what Joe Cook is thinking as well.
We do. Shout out, Joe. You're probably watching. We love you, man. All right. Jackson Arnold, baby, at Auburn. How you feeling?
Well, so I wrote a 3-part series on all the SEC quarterbacks. I broke down all the ones we play, and then I broke down all the ones we don't play, because that's also relevant as well, right? With an asymmetrical schedule. There's games where we're going to be big South Carolina Gamecock fans, right? Even though we don't play them. So I broke down the last 4, and they're kind of interesting. Jackson Arnold at Auburn. Ole Miss is replacing Jackson Dart with Austin Simmons. And then you've got Blake Shapen back at Mississippi State. Connor's excited.
Paul's analysis was completely off on Shapen, by the way, but
I didn't get into the metaphor of Shapen. Yeah. But the Missouri with Bo Pribula, who is actually a really interesting quarterback, a new face in the SEC. Of course, the Penn State transfer who had to transfer during the playoff. He's really interesting. But Jackson Arnold, I think, is the one that's the most interesting to Texas fans. So the question is, can Hugh Freeze, who has a pretty good track record of making the game pretty simple for his quarterbacks, can he take Jackson Arnold, take him off the scrap heap, and help him with what should be a pretty talented Auburn team? Auburn's got really good skill players this year.
They do.
So can he simplify everything for Jackson Arnold? And if Jackson Arnold does well at Auburn while OU struggles, is that just the ultimate death kiss for Brent Venables and his staff?
Yeah, it would be, and we would make sure that it appeared that way as Texas.
We would make sure. We want Venables to stay, actually, Connor.
That is true. Yeah, we don't want him to get Dillingham. So here's the thing with Jackson Arnold, and I'm trying to be as respectful as I can because he's a real human being. Jackson Arnold doesn't seem like he knows what's going on.
Yeah.
So I've seen him be able to run, and all the tools are there, right? 5-star on traits. Between the ears, I'm not sold on Jackson Arnold. And so I think Paul's point of he said it, Simplify, simplify, simplify. If you can turn him into a one read guy or a run guy, yeah. But I was not impressed, and I don't think it. And sometimes they're young guys too, right? Like, but I didn't see his intelligence for a young guy look good.
Yeah, youth is a factor, but also I think they had a bad offensive coordinator or a bad fit, at least, for what they were trying to do. And he looked like a guy who didn't know what they were trying to do. And so,
Dude, I mean, literally, he would turn around to hand it off to a running back that wasn't there. Like, it was just like crazy.
Well, we're trying to tease out, is it him or is it youth? Is it bad offense? Is it, the guy is it pressure? Is it, I don't know. We're going to find out. So Ryan asked an interesting point because Auburn had their own Jackson Arnold. The difference is Peyton Thorne could play entire 3/4 of play where he's the best player on the field.
He would kill you at the end. It was so
and then just throw the game away. So
yeah,
is Jackson Arnold an upgrade over Peyton Thorne? Which Peyton Thorne? Mm-hmm. The guy who throws the pick six to lose the game, or the guy for 3/4 plays great football and is like throwing dimes on downfield?
Looks awesome,
yeah. He's insane. Peyton Thorne is the most frustrating college quarterback I've ever watched. So we're gonna find out, man. I don't know. We truly don't know. I would think he's not, to tell you the truth, but
me too.
Maybe they can get him into this single read offense. And again, don't underestimate that Auburn's going to have really good skill players around him this year.
What's their wide receiver's name?
Cam.
Yeah. Sheesh. Baller. Yeah. So they're going to have that. I think it was a mix, right? Like, to me personally, just my gut feeling is that Arnold's not very sharp. He was and he was young in an offense that was horribly coordinated with a lack of talent.
Yeah.
So I think all those things can be true. And I think that's why it looks so horrific for OU.
So a guy I think it's going to be really interesting is Bo Pribula at Missouri. If you've watched him play at Penn State, man, he was really nice changeup for them and just good. And he's a dual threat. He's a good runner. He's also a good passer. And he's kind of clutch. Like, they would put him in on the goal line or short yardage, but then they'd also just give him a series every now and then. And good stuff would always happen. And he's a great athlete. I don't just mean his raw traits, like 40 time and all that. I mean, he's super coordinated. Like, he's the guy that there's a bad snap and he catches it with like one hand back here and doesn't panic and like makes a play out of it. So Missouri is interesting in that I think they're going to put a lot on his shoulders. And I think if Missouri surprises, Bo Pribula is going to be a big, big reason why.
I haven't studied him at all, and I need to. It's hopefully Mizzou gets back in the mix. Remember this year, man, they were supposed to be on the up and up. That's also a difference between like roster cycles and really being a program.
Yeah. Well, part of the reason Missouri was expected to be really good this year was just schedule.
Yeah.
They had a very favorable schedule.
Even that they couldn't nail.
I still think they had a pretty good year, didn't they?
Yeah, but it wasn't
record-wise.
I remember like everybody was like, Mizzou's going to be a top 2 finisher in the league, and da-da-da. It was just the preseason hype on them was crazy. Okay. Austin Simmons.
Jackson Dart era is over. That guy started a lot of games for Ole Miss. Very mobile, good dual threat. Struggled as a pure pocket passer. And Jackson Dart was a guy like Lane Kiffin who tends to really slaughter and pile it on bad or average defenses. But when he plays defenses with a pulse, struggles a little bit.
Gets a little sketchy.
Yeah. Austin Simmons is interesting. He's less of a mobile guy than Jackson Dart, but he's a better pocket passer. He's got a nice ball, and he was a very highly rated quarterback. So it's all going on him. The big thing he's going to struggle with is his whole supporting cast is gone. All those wide receivers, just all those guys who made plays for Ole Miss, it seems like for 2 or 3 years, they're just gone. And the defense is going to take a step back as well. So there's a real chance, Ole Miss has been a real football team the last 3 years.
Mm-hmm.
There's a real chance they go like 7-5, 8-4, for sure.
How do they compare offensively to us?
Oh, we're better.
Think we are better?
Yes.
Because we lost everything too.
Yeah, we have better guys waiting in the wings.
Is that what it is?
Yeah.
Cool.
Oh, here it is.
The chosen one. Paul said something real silly about like them having a bad record with Blake Shapen at the helm. Okay, we'll see about that, Paul. Mr. 7-6. You really think they're gonna have?
Well, they went 2-10. Shapen not fully responsible for that.
Yeah,
because he got injured. He had a bad shoulder injury. Got surgery. He's back. The backup Van Buren, who we liked as a freshman, he's now at LSU. So
I think they messed up there, man.
If Shapen gets hurt, I don't know what they're doing.
Dude, I'm pushing Shapen out for Van Buren.
You would think.
Yeah, I don't know what they did. That was very short-sighted. If they had the option to keep Van Buren, they needed to do that.
Yeah, I agree. They also have a really tough schedule. Again. So poor Jeff Lebby, he may start his SEC career, his first couple of years, 5-19 or something.
Yeah, but luckily you're at Mississippi State where you can go 5-19. Like that's the thing. Like the expectation's not like you're going to get fired there.
Yeah, but you know what, Homer? If you look at their record year to year,
they can stay kind of consistent.
I mean, they were doing the SEC scheduling thing that I told you. They were going to a bowl game every year.
Yeah.
And not just
with the Pirate. I was going to say
their fans actually have an expectation of winning seasons and going to bowls. So,
but I think you can justify not firing him at Mississippi State.
Well, one thing about Mississippi State, if you rank the programs just by resources and interest and all that, not near the top of the SEC. They're getting an equal share of SEC money, TV revenue. Yeah. And when we start sharing, and if Mississippi State will actually run their programs frugally, they could just pick, we're going to be awesome at football. And we're going to spend all of our money here, and we don't care. And they could be a pretty enticing place just purely for the money, for different transfers or high school guys.
Mississippi State fans are hardcore. Dude, I can't stand the bells. I would not be able to be at it. That just that physically and emotionally exhausts me.
Yeah,
the bell. I could not do that, man.
I'm not a bell guy.
I can't, dude. Them doing that the whole time. I could never go to a Mississippi State game. That would drive me insane. All right. SEC quarterbacks. Finito. Quick hit. This Joe Castiglione, the AD of Oklahoma, sent this out. This is from our On3 brethren at Sooner Scoop. This is where I got it from. This is Joe C. sent this out. Each day there are headlines on the change and disruption seen throughout college athletics. At Oklahoma, when we read those headlines, we see opportunity and possibility. Within 2 months, the likely reality of revenue sharing with student athletes will be upon us due to the expected approval of the House versus NCAA class action lawsuit settlement. Oklahoma is planning to share the maximum allowed annual revenue, amounting to $20.5 million beginning July 1st, 2025. Never before has it been more important to position our program to compete and succeed, and that's exactly what we plan on doing. Then in the bottom right, NIL of tomorrow, Josie says basically, hey, we are going to do revenue sharing, but this outside way of providing financial support to our student athletes will be OU's primary competitive edge when it comes to recruiting and retaining top talent.
Traditional, authentic NIL.
Yeah.
The great tradition of NIL. Yeah. And authentic. That's a shot at Jimbo Fisher and the Aggies, right?
Yep. So that's also supposed to come. Traditional, authentic NIL is set to have new parameters come July 1st. So I think they are going to crack down on some of the tomfoolery. But this is Joe C.
No, they're not.
Well, it wouldn't hold up in court. That's true. And
what
also,
are you talking about?
That's your edge. Yeah, nothing. That's the funniest part because nothing's enforceable, so they can't do anything, even when they try.
I love it. People like the NCAA needs to come in and set some strict guidelines. No,
they literally can't. It would just dissolve the organization every single time. It's incredible. Yeah, it's so stupid how we got in this situation. But okay, so
all right. So thought exercise.
Mm-hmm.
You're a program trying to differentiate yourself. Why wouldn't you take the vast bulk of that $20.5 million if you're a major program that's not at the elite and just put all of it into, like, we're going to dominate basketball. Like, we're going to have a basketball team no one's ever seen. We're just going to buy dudes. Or we're going to put it purely in football, the Mississippi State suggested model.
Yeah.
We're going to put the bare minimum at every other athletic program, and we don't really care. We're a football school. I would think that rather than distribute it all equally, if you're one of the have-nots or in the middle tier, you pick a sport, even a niche sport like baseball, and just say, the Mississippi State Bulldogs are going to Omaha every freaking year. And this is
on a legendary run.
And university culture off of, right? I don't know. I would think that there's some schools that are going to play this in different ways and allocate resources in different ways. That's going to be fun to watch.
I think you should too, right? Like,
yeah.
And what's the argument for, like, why wouldn't you share the revenue the most with the ones generating the revenue?
Well, that's obvious. I mean, if you have cultural reasons that you want to put all of your money into women's basketball, whatever. But it's not a net profit. Right? Football makes the most money, and then at some schools, basketball makes money.
We are going to see the difference between the ideologues and the pragmatists, and so that's what's going to be. The ideologues are going to be like, they come here for an education and and we're going to spend money. The pragmatists are going to be like, yeah, okay, we're going to put our bullets where we need them.
Well, there's going to be massive tension with the Title IX stuff, right?
Yep.
So, and that we'll see how that's enforced through the courts or politically. It's very hard as someone with an IQ over 100 and a capitalist to hear Megan Rapinoe say, we just want our fair share.
No.
When you're like, you're losing money and you're being subsidized.
Yeah. So,
like, know your role and be grateful. This is like the Big 12 with their 2 playoff bids. So, so Texas will have the ability to kind of do everything it wants or anything it wants because it has enough resources. But I do wonder if the NIL well is going to dry up a little when people see that TV revenue is starting to be used. I don't know. What do you think?
So this is what I do think is interesting what Josie says. So if everyone's all the big dogs are gonna max out, right? They're gonna all do the 20.5 million.
Yes,
that's a given. So your competitive edge technically on the books is still going to be your NIL.
Yeah.
So that is what's interesting. And
but that 20.5 is only allowed if you're in the big revenue sharing conferences.
Okay.
Because the curve of, so it's not just that the SEC, so the Big 10 per team makes the most money right now.
Yeah.
But the curve of the slope for the SEC is this.
Yeah.
Like, realistically, SEC teams could be splitting $65 million. Like, they could have $65 million each within the next 4 years. And that's a slope that no one else can compete with. Like, the ACC is going to be splitting 25, 30, whatever. And that's where the concern is for this 20.5. You know, some schools could try all they want and they're not going to be able to scrap together a full $20 million NIL budget.
Yeah. Yeah. And then, so you're going to have to make everything up off the books with your NIL. And like Paul said, you can try to regulate it. It just would lead to the NCAA not existing anymore. What do you do though? What do you do if you do get out from the NCAA, which is what's happening by changing these playoff structures and stuff like that? At that point, what stops? Because I hear people talking antitrust with like the SEC and the Big 10, but to me, it can't be antitrust because by definition, there's other leagues, and what would stop the Big 10 and the SEC? The SEC buys the Big 10, they change the name and become one league. The NFL is already exempt from monopolies; they've already decided that. So it's like, if these other 2 leagues are getting paid so much more, why not just turn into one entity and be the college league? Like what? And then you can set whatever numbers you want. So there's not this forced inequality.
Someone has to do the math on the value of passive viewership that's created by the 70 other schools, right? Like, what does it really add up to? And does revenue sharing with them to some degree create a bigger, more vibrant sport?
I think it does create a bigger, more vibrant sport.
Yeah. And so, but if you just make it all about money, like, I'm sympathetic to the athletes, I'm glad they're getting paid, etc. The more you divorce the feel of that's my college team from the actual game, I hate to break this to the athletes because they're like, we're the product, we're the, we should be paid. Cool, glad you're getting paid. If you take the Longhorns off your helmet and you take the school song away, you take Bevo away, and you go have a game and you're called the Austin Renegades and you play the Oklahoma Cowboys at House Park, 5,000 people will show up.
Right. And also,
the reason you are getting that money is because there's an emblem on your helmet and you have some association with the school.
That it's a legitimizer. And it's
the minute people feel disassociated from that product has nothing to do with my school or my experience, all that revenue is going to dry up and go away. So they need to be careful. Like, they need to tread carefully on some of this. And that's with the portal. That's with all this stuff. Like, if you just create an inferior NFL and you lose what makes college football great, which is that identification with the state, with the school, it all goes away. And I don't think all the players have thought that through sufficiently.
Yeah. And I think the other side is like, well, the NFL is getting maximum viewership, and this model, it's a clearly proven NFL model. It works. So it's just, to me, it seems like you would end up with the SEC and a Big 10 league merging. They're the premier league to the NFL. They're the under league. And then you would get this weird merging of like the Big 12, ACC, Group of Five, and then they become like the farm league to the farm league. And then you're playing to transfer into the SEC.
Yeah, if we play that system and we have relegation, I'm for it. Seeing A&M play to not get relegated to the second tier league, like against Auburn, that would be amazing. Right?
that would. All right. The fun world of college football. It's a changing, Paul.
It is. Things are always changing, Connor.
Yeah. Damn. All right, chat. Thanks for hanging out. Paul, thank you. We made it, Paul. Even though we're both sick, we did all right.
You did well, man. I'm proud of you.
All right, guys. Thank you guys for hanging out, and then we'll see you tomorrow. Should be Ian and I, unless I'm sick, and then I'll have someone cover. But until then, see you guys tomorrow.